The rain had been falling for hours. It tapped steadily against the windows of Daniel Carter's small house at the edge of the city. The streets outside were empty, the night unusually quiet except for the distant rumble of thunder. Daniel sat at his kitchen table staring at a cup of cold coffee. He hadn't touched it in nearly an hour. At 38 years old, Daniel felt like his life had quietly fallen apart. Just 6 months earlier, everything had seemed normal. He had a stable job at a logistics company, a comfortable apartment downtown, and a circle of friends he saw every weekend. But life can change in ways you never expect. The company had suddenly downsized. Daniel lost his job. Soon after that, his girlfriend of 4 years decided to leave, saying she needed a fresh start. And somehow, the comfortable life he once had slowly unraveled. Now he lived in a small rental house on the outskirts of town, trying to rebuild a life that suddenly felt unfamiliar. That evening had been especially long. Daniel had spent the entire day sending job applications, checking emails, and hearing nothing back. No replies, no interviews, just silence. He rubbed his tired eyes and leaned back in his chair. Then knock. A sudden sound echoed through the house. Daniel looked toward the front door. He frowned. It was nearly 11:30 p.m. No one ever visited him this late. For a moment he wondered if he had imagined it, but then, knock. Knock. This time louder. Daniel stood slowly. A strange feeling crept through him. Curiosity mixed with unease. Who could possibly be knocking at his door at this hour? He walked toward the hallway. The house felt colder than usual. The floor creaked under his footsteps. The rain outside grew heavier. Daniel reached the front door and paused. For a moment he just stood there, listening. Silence. Then he slowly unlocked the door. He turned the handle and opened Italiano. The moment the door swung open, Daniel froze. Standing on the porch was a young boy, maybe 8 or 9 years old. He was drenched from the rain, his thin jacket clinging to his body. His dark hair stuck to his forehead, and his small hands were trembling from the cold. But what made Daniel freeze wasn't just the boy standing there. It was the look in the boy's eyes. Fear, exhaustion, and something else. Hope. The boy looked up at Daniel and spoke softly. Please, can you help me? Daniel blinked in confusion. Where are your parents? He asked gently. The boy shook his head. I don't know. Daniel felt a knot tighten in his chest. Come inside, he said quickly. The boy stepped into the house, dripping water onto the wooden floor. Daniel grabbed a towel and wrapped it around the boy's shoulders. What's your name? Daniel asked. Elias. Daniel nodded. I'm Daniel. He guided Elias into the kitchen and poured him a cup of warm tea. Elias held the cup carefully, warming his shaking hands. For a few minutes, neither of them spoke. Finally, Daniel asked the question that had been building in his mind. How did you end up here tonight? Elias hesitated. Then he told his story. Earlier that evening, Elias had been at a small shelter across town with his mother. They had been living there for several weeks after losing their apartment. But that night, something terrible happened. His mother suddenly became very sick. She collapsed. An ambulance came and took her to the hospital. In the chaos, Elias became separated from the staff helping her. Afraid and confused, he had wandered outside into the rain. He didn't know where to go. He didn't know who to trust. So he walked and walked until he saw Daniel's house with the lights still on. Daniel listened quietly. His heart grew heavier with every word. After Elias finished, Daniel picked up his phone. Let's find your mom, he said. After several calls to nearby hospitals, they finally located her. She had been admitted with severe pneumonia but was stable. Relief filled the room. The hospital agreed to let Elias visit her the next morning. Daniel prepared the guest room for him that night. As Elias climbed into bed, he looked at Daniel and whispered something that Daniel would never forget. Thank you for opening the door. Daniel smiled softly. You're safe now. The next morning, Daniel drove Elias to the hospital. When the boy ran into his mother's arms, Daniel quietly stepped back, giving them space. But something inside him had changed. That single knock on his door had reminded him of something he had almost forgotten: purpose. In the weeks that followed, Daniel stayed in contact with Elias and his mother. He helped them find a small apartment. He connected them with local support programs, and slowly, Daniel began volunteering at the same shelter where Elias had been staying. Months later, something surprising happened. The shelter offered Daniel a full-time position managing community outreach programs. It wasn't the corporate career he once had, but it felt more meaningful than anything he had done before. One rainy evening nearly a year later, Daniel stood at the shelter's entrance, welcoming families inside. A volunteer beside him asked how he got involved with the shelter. Daniel smiled and glanced at the door. "It started with a knock," he said. "A knock." Daniel nodded. "One night someone needed help." He paused, and I decided to open the door. Sometimes the smallest moments change the direction of our lives. A single decision. A single act of kindness. A single door opened on a rainy night. And sometimes, that door doesn't just change someone else's life. It changes yours forever.